I can't do it. I can't fake those original thoughts again.
We can do it again.
I can lead you astray, straight to hell if you like. Give me a big black box and I can open your eyes. Are we keeping it real? Are we keeping it tight? Are we all just victims of our infinite life?
Welcome back to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is There Will Be Movies, where we talk about 25 of our favourite movies from a given decade. This is Volume 1, so we're doing 2000 to 2009. Episode 12, Children of Men. I am Matt Waters. I'm joined, as always, by Ben Phillips, who would remember to hit record if he were in charge of that. Ben, how are you? It's insufferably hot here.
I am fine. I'm not going to rub it in.
So, we're doing Children of Men, set in, well, parts of it set in Ben's home of London. Chosen by you more than me. We have you, and we have both. And the reason this is you and not both is I saw it a long time ago and remembered it being good. And then, because you picked it, it got on the list, and I saw it again, and I thought, oh, it's more than good, it's excellent. So, good catch, making sure it ends up on here.
I know. Like, we had like the three Quaron options for this decade. It's Y Tu Mamma También, it's Harry Potter 3, and it's Children of Men. This is just the one that's kind of like latched onto me. Like, I love Y Tu Mamma También. I said in the last recording that like Alfonso Cuarón's like my favourite working filmmaker at the moment. I think every movie he's done since 2002 is like fantastic. But for whatever reason, probably like this being set in London, the technical prowess behind this movie, it just being, even now, like it being so prescient to like what era we live in now, just makes it hit home.
Seeing it post-Brexit or middle of Brexit, etc., it hits a different way now, I would say. And even in America, where there is now, or has been for a few years now, the like incredibly heavy anti-immigrant rhetoric that's going around, it makes it more prescient. I don't know if it enhances it or makes it like tougher to watch or both. It's crazy, but I
mean it's definitely tough to watch because like I've watched this movie multiple times previously. I've not watched it in a few years, but this is the first time it's made me cry. Which I don't know if that's like me emotionally like growing up and being able to like see these moments as being more beautiful than they are. But like the sections at the end of this movie hit home so much more for me this time round. And that's not to say like Y Tu Mamma También isn't a masterpiece. It is. It's just two Mexican boys traveling across on like a sex trip is a lot of fun and probably would be made on this list if like we were doing more than one movie per director. But
yeah, well, that opens a whole avenue of stuff. Yeah, and I would lean more towards this because of what it is contributing to the genre and like, you know, the sort of sci-fi in the background thing that has become very popular in the last decade or two. I just think he is directing the shit out of this, and it's so impressive, and just all the one-ers that he's doing. And
we have to give a shout out to Emmanuel Lubezki, or Chibo as he's commonly known, like 3-time Oscar winner post this movie, but this is some of my favourite work from him. I mean, he won 3 years in a row for Gravity, Birdman and Revenant, which no matter what you think about those movies, they're all really fucking gorgeous movies.
Oh yeah, that's a heavyweight trio right there in terms of visual, well, not even just visuals, but like, you know, impressive camera shit.
Yeah, and even then he's been nominated for Tree of Life, Children of Men, The New World, Sleepy Hollow. Like, he does these like really, really gorgeous movies. He works with, mostly at this point, Cuarón, Inarritu and Terrence Malick. He just has a gift behind the camera. He is utterly fantastic and probably one of my favourite working cinematographers. Just like this is one of my favourite working directors, so it's like match made in heaven.
It's all just come together. And speaking of coming together, this is very much a movie with many, many writers, a lot of legacy type stuff, because it is a book by P.D. James, very different to her usual stuff, that was originally adapted as a screenplay by Paul Chart, then rewritten by Mark Fergus and Hawk Otsby, who are officially credited for the script of Iron Man, but as anyone who knows anything about Iron Man will tell you, there basically wasn't a script. Like, they improvised all of that. Alfonso Cuarón got hired, and he and Timothy Sexton rewrote the movie, but then he went off to make Harry Potter 3, which meant that David Arata stepped in and rewrote it again, and then that draft secured Clive Owen, who also makes uncredited contributions to the script. He added stuff of his own, he critiqued stuff stuff that they'd written, and like Cuarón said how he would like send him scenes and be like, what do you think of this? And yeah, that he was an enormous voice in the room and all that. But yeah, we got 5 credited writers, but no room for Clive Owen, no room for Paul Chart, but there you go.
We can't get into like what the WGA rules are for like who gets credits on movies.
Fucking stupid as well.
I was a little bit surprised because it looks like there's 4 groups of screenwriters on it, but I guess there's 2 groups of 2. It's just it looked weird in the credits at the end.
I think Cuarón and Sexton are a duo, Fergus and Ostby are a duo.
Ostby.
And Arata's a solo, and then Owen would have been solo, but he's...
Yeah, he didn't do a big enough...
They should have just shoved him in there with Arata somehow. I don't know.
It's interesting that he got to do this, because obviously, like, because he does Eat Mum Tambien, then he goes off and signs on to do this movie, and then obviously gets the opportunity to direct Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yes, the best Harry Potter movie.
The best Harry Potter movie, which apparently Alfonso Cuarón decided he only wanted to make one. I don't know if he wanted to get tied down.
It's so strange. Like, I would just back up the dump truck of money to him, but I guess it's probably the best because it's also the most like artsy and technically impressive in terms of practical. Like he's doing one-ers and complicated shots in that, and maybe they're like, look, we're looking for something a little bit more boilerplate, a little bit more paint by numbers here. I don't know.
I mean, it's sort of similar to Hulk, where it's like you have a director who is obviously so much more technically accomplished than you would normally hire for this kind of source material, which is what makes it interesting. Whether or not you think Hulk is like a great movie, it's definitely interesting. Which, I mean, I know there are people who think that Prisoner of Azkaban kind of takes it too dark too soon in the series, but it is.
But that's definitely the book where it does start to get serious. It's all been
pun. You said serious. It's a pun.
Yeah, let's just leave that there then. Fuck. Released September 2006 in the UK, but Christmas Day in the US, which can't have helped with the religious controversies that...
Christmas Day is such a bizarre release date in the US, though. Like, you hear things like Les Mis and Django Unchained came out on the same day, Christmas Day, and it's like, why? Why would you... I mean, I guess there's 2 different groups of people who are just like, I've got no one to see on Christmas, so I'll either go see big epic musical or...
I used to go see movies on Christmas Eve with my father, but like, I don't think cinemas are open in this country on Christmas Day. But like, it's not only that they're open, but movies open on Christmas Day in the US. It's weird. And like, what was it last Christmas when there was like Bumblebee and Aquaman and all that? Like, something big opened on Christmas, I think. I can't remember.
Was it Mary Poppins?
Possibly? That sounds
That was like
right.
those are the 3 big ones. It was like Aquaman, Bumblebee, and Mary Poppins, like the 3 big Christmas movies.
Yeah, naturally, a lot of stuff with the Christianity there. But 2006, so Ben, why don't you go in on the year that was 2006?
So after 2005 felt like a FIFA dream. We're now kind of like settling down firmly into kind of like franchisey movies. Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Dead Man's Chest, Da Vinci Code, Alexander Meltdown, Casino Royale, the best of Daniel Craig's Bond movies. Night at the Museum, Cars.
That's not true. Sorry, keep going though.
X-Men The Last Stand, Mission Impossible 3, Superman Returns, Happy Feet. Some good movies there. I like Mission Impossible 3. I like Casino Royale. You can feel the sea change into being like Disney's going to start dominating in a couple of years. You can see superheroes sort of on not their last legs, but they're not dominating as much. But we are already 2 years away from 2008 domination.
Yeah, like 2005, a Hall of Fame bad year for movies, or in terms of like the big box office. 2006, an improvement, but still not great.
I mean, you still have The Last Stand in there, and even then, I saw Pirates of the Caribbean 2, and I liked it when I saw it, but it's still not as good or as fresh as that first movie. And it did kind of solidify Johnny Depp as like movie star.
The worst mistake we ever made.
So let's talk about some good movies. Pan's Labyrinth, which maybe we'll have some time for coming up in a future episode. Who knows? The Lives of Others, Inland Empire, Colossal Youth. This movie went ranked number 52 of the decade on the They Shoot Pictures list.
Gross.
The Host by Bong Joon-ho, fantastic movie. The Departed, another one we might have some time to discuss maybe in the future.
Yeah.
One of our title movies, Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit, Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan.
Yeah, zoom in on our logo, baby.
But yeah, so like there is some good stuff that came out in 2006. It's just this is one of those years where like you look at the highest grossing movies and it's like that wasn't what people saw.
No, not at all.
Which takes us to the Oscars, which won by The Departed. Martin Scorsese finally getting to win his Oscar after many, many years. Babel.
Clearly his best movie, you know.
Babel, Letters from Iwo Jima, the good half of Clint Eastwood's kind of Pacific duology. Little Miss Sunshine and The Queen, now spun off into The Crown on Netflix. I'm excited to see
if Helen Mirren comes back.
I'm excited to see if Helen Mirren comes back, also excited to see Olivia Colman in season 3.
We're always excited to see Olivia Colman.
This is very true. But yeah, there we go. That's kind of like where cinema was at in 2006. Kind of after how weird 2005 was, you start to see where the industry's going to go until you reach the point in 2019 where the top 10 is like all Disney movies.
Yeah, you got Disney, you got superheroes, you got sort of indie movies writ large. Yeah, it's all just happening, isn't it? But to focus on this movie, 109 minutes, I've been complaining, because I'm a cranky pants, about a lot of these movies feeling a bit too long in places. This one, I would not be able to levy that complaint because it's so kinetic and tight and just everything feels so important because you are just zoomed right in on Theo, who is famously in almost every scene. There's like a very brief scene where he's not in it, but other than that, yeah, it's a small cast and you are focused right in with them, and it feels, I mean, they've shot it to feel like a documentary almost, and I think that really helps with it not feeling too long.
They cut out a lot. Like, most of the dialogue in this movie isn't explaining stuff. It's just kind of like very organically talking about the world.
Yeah.
So like there's no point where someone has to sit down and go like, right, we're going to discuss the scientific reasons why no woman has been able to give birth. It's just everyone kind of like trusts it and goes with it, and this is the status quo. No one doubts it. Like, you get a little bit of like character stuff going through, but again, it's all done in very organic ways where like people are talking about people in the way that you talk about people when you're like talking about someone who isn't in the room.
Definitely, and it's got that Shaun of the Dead thing going on where like they have no interest in telling you where this came from, how it goes. Shaun of the Dead, it goes away and we don't know what happens here really, but it's more about, right, let's focus on what's happening here rather than how we got here. There's no big, this is what happened in 2012, like opening narration or anything like that. Budget, $76 million. Box office, only $70 million, so big fat flop here.
Yeah, I am happy to say that the UK did come out to support it. Like, we gave it a gross of about $10 million. Like, it's like a seventh of all the money it made came from the UK. Half came from the US, but you expect that from a country that big. It opened number 1 at the UK box office, which I'm just like, I'm happy. I'm happy that we did that for this movie.
Yeah, we gotta raise it up. Most of the a lot of the cast are British. The biggest name who is not would be Julianne Moore, who was originally cast to play the role of the first woman to be pregnant in 18 years, and it is a very good thing they pivoted away from that white saviour narrative. And I also think it's very good that so many of the refugees that you see are white as well, because it could have been a real rough scene, a real Game of Thronesian whitest woman alive amidst all the brown people type thing. But Cuarón landed on an African mother because of the strongly held belief. Is it even a belief? Like, it's scientifically proven, right, that life came from Africa. Charlie Hunnam was cast immediately after Cuarón saw Cold Mountain because he's like, you're real good, come play just a real scary fuckbag Geordie man, and he does. Too good for 50 Shades, but not too good for this. And then there was a lot of controversy upon release around all the stuff with the Christianity, like the fishes and the virgin birth style scene, and learning that she's pregnant in a stable, and everyone says Jesus or Jesus Christ when they see her with the child, and Theo means God, and yeah, it's all there. It's all right there. It's not really like, I don't think it's mocking Christianity, but I can see why the people that get offended if you even invoke anything Christian without being a Christian work, I can see why they would be up in arms. But
it's doing the same thing the Leftovers did, of kind of like extrapolating what religion or what theology would look like in a world where something tragic had happened. It's taking that and going like, well, how would Christianity evolve? What lines would people kind of travel down in a world where this happened? And,
well, the world where this happened, we start in 2027, and our protagonist Theo is getting a coffee in London, and there are news reports about how baby Diego has been stabbed to death. He's not a baby, he's 18 years old, but he was the youngest person on the planet, making him a celebrity. And they recount his life right on down to minutes. Like, it's not just years and months, it is right on in there because of how important that is. And like, you hear how the mantle has been passed to a woman who is also 18 years old, but slightly more months, weeks, whatever. This is all then followed by a bombing which takes place 2 weeks, maybe a month after the London bombings, which is bold, but Cuarón was very
when they're shooting it, they shoot the movie.
But Cuarón was insistent on filming in London. Like, he shot in London before, and just like the big long shots of the streets, it's like there's no way you could fake that, and like they CG in the Shard because that hadn't been completed when they filmed, but would be by the time they finished, and it's impressive. It's stayed there the whole time. This opening scene is very like it's almost incidental. It's just sort of setting the scene of what the world is like in a very quick sort of minute, 2 minutes, because while they do raise the idea that perhaps the Fishers were behind this bombing, it really doesn't have much impact at all on the overall plot. It's just sort of, this is what life's like now, deal with it.
Yeah, it's the first of these like very good one camera movement shots where like you go from Theo buying his coffee and then he goes outside and just stops to kind of like put some sugar in or whatever, and then just the building explodes behind him.
Sure.
And even more freaky for me because I now work 5 minutes away from where that scene was shot. It's just one of those things where like sometimes you see these things in the newspaper and be like, oh, there's been a bombing and it takes place in this place in London, but unless you physically see landmarks that you recognise, you can kind of like dissociate from it. So
much of like Spaced and Shaun of the Dead are like very like zoomed in on this specific area of London, and I can't imagine like if you lived on these streets, it's like, oh shit. Like, so the buses have like video screen ads and everything. No Oyster cards though. So
no Oyster cards. We're not in the proper future.
No, this is timeline B. So he pretends that he's being affected by what's happened with Baby Diego because there are everyone in his office, which is called like the Ministry of something or other, which surely has to be a nod to 1984 with like the Ministry of Joy and all of that sort of stuff. There are people at their desks just weeping and looking at the news of Baby Diego's death, and he uses it to go home early and smoke some weed with Michael Caine, basically. And on the train, you see this incredibly, as we said, like, you know, the post-Brexit world with, like, the incredibly anti-immigration rhetoric with, like, all these different countries around the world, their governments have fallen. Only Britain remains. And immigration is completely illegal now. And report everyone, whether they're your sister or your house cleaner or whatever, like, report them all. And you've got trains that have got, like, reinforced windows and all the graffiti in the background and people throwing stuff. It's very intense stuff, and people in cages when he gets off at the platform to meet Jasper and stuff like that. Like, they are building such a world here.
Yeah, and like everyone's speaking in a foreign language, and
there's no way you'd notice first time through, but sitting behind him on the train is a member of the Fishers, which potentially explains what could be seen as a plot convenience later on when they find him. But yeah, and if you couple that with them having to deny that they were behind that bombing, it's like, alright, maybe they have been just tailing him constantly, and so he and Michael Caine talk about all the like religious cults and just smoke so much weed. And I love that, like, in the car he's not just listening to the cliche stuff you would expect this style of character to be listening to. He's also listening to Aphex Twin, he's also listening to dubstep, and it's just that clever thing of like, while we see this character visually and we just imagine someone whose heyday was the 60s and 70s. It's like, no, his heyday would have been like the 90s, 2000s, kind of, because we're set a little bit further on. And how like we thought of our parents' music as being so old and ours is so cutting edge, and ours will never grow old, but one day it will be considered old music. It's just a really nice
and it does that nice shortcut of like, you don't have to show what the culture is in this time frame, because you can just say like they're into the classics, quote unquote, but the classics are contemporary music for when the movie was made.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we see throughout Jasper's house a lot of newspaper clippings and like pictures and stuff like that, and it tells you that he was a political cartoonist, his wife was a political photographer, and you know, you never really get these lines said out loud, so you are just left to infer what you will from this background stuff, as you are a lot throughout the movie.
Yeah, and like what the one key piece of information is, like you see Jasper's wife is kind of like in a wheelchair through all these scenes, and in one of the newspaper clippings it says photojournalist or government denies involvement in torture of photojournalist, and just kind of like really reinforces what kind of world they're living in, where
and that's why he lives off the grid. Like his house is in the middle of the woods, there's like a alarm system, they have to like move a bunch of tree branches to use the accessible road, it's all solar panelled so that he's got electricity, but he's out in the middle of night. It's grim dark stuff. And
but I just enjoyed that the scene is he's just there to talk the shit with him.
Yeah, it's just I mean,
like we get world building, but it is all framed in this way of like the conversation is cough while you smoke this weed. Can you taste strawberries?
Yes, and strawberry cough is a real strain of marijuana. So yeah, we learn as we go that Theo, while he seems like he's a 9-to-5 punch the clock bureaucrat, that he used to be involved in the political scene. And given who Jasper is and who Jasper's wife is, you can trace that friendship back to here potentially. And
yeah, because like some people say like, oh, are they related? Is he his father or whatever? But like, they're just friends.
I don't get that. That's just a desperation for everything to be just so incredibly like normative. Like, oh, old person must be protagonist's father, and pretty lady must be love interest. You know, that sort of shit. Michael Caine smoking weed for the first time in his career, and he based his performance on John Lennon after meeting him. So who among us has not, you know? So on his way to work the next day, Theo is abducted by the Fishes, who are they're a terrorist organisation, let's be real. They have done some bombings, even if they didn't do this most recent one, and their whole mission statement is rights for immigrants, etc. They are led by his ex-girlfriend Julian, played by Julianne Moore.
Estranged wife.
Yeah, what are we doing here? Why is she called I've never heard a woman called Julian before, and I know she's called Julianne Moore, but like, did someone just mishear what her name is and just put it in the script? Balaclava over the head, he's in a room with like the intense lighting, and there's all these newspapers around covering the windows, and they had to produce every one of these fake newspapers and come up with all the headlines and all this shit. And it's very, very Wes Anderson, but in a darker way, of course. It's his ex-girlfriend Julian, and they want transport papers for someone, an incoming, a refugee who they want to get out of the country. I don't even know if she gives them that much information at this stage, but yeah, it's for a female refugee. And they call them all Fugees, which is fun. He declines, and they just chuck him back out on the street and stuff like that. And
they give him the thing and says like, if you change your mind, put this up on the board outside. I can't remember what station they mention.
Yeah, but it's one of the examples of how the dialogue is structured in a way that it provides exposition without being exposition-y. Like you learn from Julian about, you know, how political he used to be, and he asks about her parents and you know, just all this stuff. It's good like background stuff, and she's in it for relatively a short amount of time, but like I feel every scene with Clive Owen and Julianne Moore together is like extremely memorable. I think they have quite a good chemistry.
They have fantastic chemistry, and they build so much like unspoken kind of history between the two of them in a very short amount of time. Like the way that she is the one who calls him Theo and everyone else calls him Farron. It's just a lot of intimacy is kind of like really well broadcast in that sense.
And stuff like him saying, oh, they still use that same picture of you, it doesn't do you justice, and you're sort of immediately wondering, right, what went wrong here, and are they, you know, I don't think they even explicitly for a while tell you that they were together. You just kind of pick it up from their dynamic together. Although in Jasper's house there is totally the picture of the two of them with a child.
Yeah, I can't remember whether or not we don't hear the name Dylan until they go to Jasper's, or whether or not like one of them does it as like an insult to the other one. I think like on the bus when she gets off, you think she's getting off because he's brought up Dylan.
Yeah. Well, she says he has his eyes, and oof.
Yeah.
Oof. So yeah, even though he turns down, because she says, I know you need the money, and I feel like he turned her down entirely because of that. Like he didn't appreciate the dig or whatever, because he does totally just go straight to his cousin Nigel, played by Danny Houston, who is doing a heck of an English accent, I would say. He's a minister of some kind, and like Battersea Power Station's been converted to like an art sanctuary. Like his job is to like gather these important pieces of art. Like there's a Banksy piece, just like the wall that the Banksy piece was done on, like has been cut away and brought here.
Yeah, and they the big one is like Michelangelo's David, but like part of its legs been taken away, and it's just got the wireframe inside it. And there was another one he mentions that like they couldn't get there in time, they just completely destroyed it, because what use does art have in a world where this is going to happen? And
and like he even says that to him. He's like, mate, you're doing all of this, and there won't be anyone alive in less than 100 years to see any of it, so who gives a fuck? But
yeah, and then his response is like, I do it because I don't want to think about it. I'd rather save this and use my time for this reason than to think about the fact that when I die and my son randomly played by
Yeah, Ed Westwood.
Ed Westwick of all people, who's just sat there like on his little computer screen doing what looks like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Like, at first you're like, oh, is he like in some way unwell? And he might be, because he's like telling him to take his pills, and he's like, he seems quite disaffected, like he's like not engaging with any of them, and it's like, what's happening here? But it's a fun little, I don't know, like seeing him like drive up through the gates and everything, and just like there's a zebra just walking around.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, because like, a lot of the scenes early on with Theo were shot in East London, which like a lot of it's shot around Hackney, and that is an area which is kind of like majoritively made up of people of colour and immigrants, or at least it definitely was kind of back then. It's kind of becoming a bit more gentrified now.
Yeah.
And but then like as they move through, like they go into kind of like central London, you literally see him go through the gates, and like it's just a completely different world. Like this is where all the rich people live. As he goes through like Whitehall and stuff like that, you're like, oh, it gets a little bit creepy, and just this like you get like these three stages of like economic disparity, where like there's outer London, which is still people live there and work jobs in central London, and then as you move closer and closer to like Westminster and Whitehall and stuff like that, you start to see the affluence start to seep back in.
It seems like people are just sort of like lazing about, and it's like, oh, it's the last days of Rome. Like, why should we work? Let's just fuck about. There's the floating pig outside the window, the obvious, the Pink Floyd reference there, because the movie is set on the 50th anniversary year of that album. It's a good touch. I like all the like cloak and dagger with the meetings with the Fishers and stuff, like how they like take him to like an abandoned, is that meant to be like a ticket office in an abandoned train station that they take
Probably.
him to?
I mean, it feels like the kind of thing where like I don't whether or not it is literally an abandoned ticket station at that point in 2006, or whether or not they managed to like rent it out or whatever it is to shoot the movie. It's hard to say, because there's a lot of those kind of things around London as well.
So he gets from his cousin, he acquires joint papers, which means he has to accompany the girl, but it seems like this is something he did deliberately, because it means he gets more money from them. And Luke, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, he's like, ugh, Julian trusts you. It's sort of very like, I would tell you to fuck off, mate, but I like
that he gets his prepayment in, like he's got 2 pints in front of him, and you think Luke's drinking a third pint with him, and then when he brings it up, like he just drops a third pint in front of him and then goes like, fuck you, but fine, have this third pint, sit there and drink your sorrows away. Because like there's other little such as like maybe he's an alcoholic because
he calls him a drunk.
He calls him a drunk, but like when he goes to see his cousin, like he pulls out all the stuff from his pockets, like some money.
He's got the bottle, isn't he? Yeah.
He's got a bottle of whiskey with him, which you see him drinking from for the rest of the movie. So like obviously he's drinking a lot.
Numb the pain. Yes, so there's like a little arranged meeting with, there's a dog track, and like you have to follow this woman who says, have you seen this dog? And then Julian's on a bus, and then
but like he makes a point of like he's going to get his money before.
Oh, of course. Come on, mate, I'm in a rush. Come on.
Yeah. He wins the dog race, and then he immediately goes like, before I go do this thing that will have unknown reverberations across the entire world.
Yeah. And he like almost misses that. He has to chase the bus down and everything because he stops to drink or light a cigarette or something. But he thinks he's got a minute, and then he's like, "Oh fuck!"
I love the little touch of her bringing the dog that she's looking for out of her handbag.
yeah, and as you said, like there's a lot of relationship building between these two on the bus, and like he clearly like still is in love with her and everything. He's like, no, look at me, and she's like, it hurts to look at you. And that's such a like painful beat to play on that is so true to life. Like I would imagine if
you start to get the intuition that like they had a child together at some point and something bad happened to it. Whether or not that is related to what caused people to stop being able to be pregnant, you don't really find out, or you don't find out at this point. But like this relationship only broke apart because something so
what a trauma, like losing that child, and like it's so raw and real, and like you see them kiss here and everything. Like he's like, what happens with us after this? And it's like, it's not like I never want to see you again, or I don't love you or anything like that. It's just such a like difficult thing. But yeah, he meets Key, he meets Miriam, the 5 of them get in a car and they start driving down towards Canterbury, and they are ambushed real big, and they get pulled over by the police, and Luke shoots 2 of them, and they keep driving and everything. But so this is probably one of the more famous like continuous shots, and the big 3, none of them are actually continuous shots. It's the Birdman thing where they've like made it seem like a continuous shot, but they are still incredibly technically impressive. Before they even get there, there's this stuff in the car with like, she says again how like he used to be such a big political activist, and he like spiked coffee of people that were trying to arrest them, and they do this this weird little beat with a ping pong ball where they're like shooting it into each other's mouths and stuff. It's like, well, this is certainly a thing you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also like this great little like it's one of those moments that like it reinforces the character because it's not something you normally see, but it's a nice touch that feels so human.
Yeah, and it feels so personal to them. And
I love that they do the thing where like the cars are subtly modernized as well, where like they're just completely like sheer windows, which I think makes it easier to shoot in as well.
Yeah, well, there's that.
But
yeah, they're made to look a little bit battered and old, but then like on the screen there's like a heads-up display almost in the bottom right,
and that tells you how fast you're going, points out things to pay attention to.
Yeah, and like you see this burning car like slowly creeping down the hill, and you're almost like, oh, they should probably be able to get past that, and it's like, oh fuck, no, we won't. And then just the swarm of people coming out of the woods, and it's just so intense, and the fucking logistics that they had to go through to perform this are insane. There were 4 people sitting on the roof of the car that had to be specially modified so that both the front and back screens could fold down to let the camera through. The actors' chairs had to fully recline so they could lie down and let a camera sweep over the top of them, and they were told this could not be done before they started filming it, and through insane amounts of invention they managed it. But yeah, it's just so intense, and like the people on the motorcycle, like they shoot Julian and she dies, and Theo has to like open the door into one of them and he goes flying, and the bike hits the car and flies. It's crazy. And then the police as well, and like the way they shoot that scene as well with Chiwetel Ejiofor like getting out of the car in the midst of all this, show us the passport, show us this, and he just shoots them both, and it's just like, fuck, what is happening right now?
What I love about it is it doesn't go too big with it. Like everything that happens feels the car isn't driving so fast when the flaming car comes down the hill that it feels like something that people would do when they're actually driving.
Yeah, the
gunshots all feel realistic. The opening the car door just to kind of like knock them off the motorcycle, like they all feel like logical steps. There's none of that big stuff where like he opens the car door and then you see it slamming into the front tire and it flipping over into the front. It just kind of like
it's really like back. I don't know. It's almost invasive. Like the thud you hear when that bike sort of awkwardly hits the car and like turns. It's like, Jesus. It feels so real, all of it. Like they were going for this documentary style thing, but it also is almost horror movie-ish in the way that it's, but like the like new wave of horror where it's sort of like real life horror. That's what I'm talking about. With, like Black Mirror stuff.
Because he's holding on to Julian's neck all the time, kind of like trying to stop her from bleeding out, and
it's just like how that car just creeps down that hill, as you said, out of shot, and just how these people just appear from nowhere, and you don't know what's going on, you don't know who they are, but because of the way this world has been established, and knowing that the Fishers are a terrorist organisation, knowing that the government, well, we later learn the government would not be too happy with what they're trying to achieve, it's like, it's just, you don't really ask questions, you're just sort of like, well, you do, but it's like, it doesn't matter, like, this is just what life is like, and they once they get away, they have to bury Julian, and you see Theo sort of walk away, and he's been so disaffected until now, and so like, yeah, whatever, I just want the money and all that, and you just see him just break down by this tree, and it's Clive Owen is very good in this.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned him so much so far because I don't think this movie works if they don't have someone as good as Clive Owen.
Yeah, especially if he's going to be in every fucking scene, like.
Yeah, like Julianne Moore is like second build in this movie, and she goes very quickly, but she like really leaves that impact. But Clive Owen has to carry everything.
Yeah, you're asking him to do so much, to wear so many hats, to literally physically like move so much as an actor. Like he talked about like how he and camera operators were having to do this like really intricate dance around these tightly choreographed scenes and everything. Like, yeah, this must have taken quite a lot out of him doing this. How he managed to film The Inside Man in the same year, I don't know. So they reach a safe house down in sort of Canterbury sort of way, heading down towards the south of England. Yeah.
I do love that they get to a point where like they don't even need the papers that Theo got from them at this point. Like they never go through the actual checkpoint after this.
No, well, they fuck it, don't they? They've like ruined the plan somehow or whatever. Like, I assume they were originally going to Dover or somewhere down that way.
I can't remember where they said the first meeting with the Tomorrow was going to be, because they say they're not going to be able to get there in time, but they're close enough to Bexhill to get there.
Yeah.
So it might be Dover, but they definitely head to Sussex.
So yeah, they reach. There's a farm, safe house. Theo's told he can't go back to London until the morning, and all the Fishers are coming in to vote for a new leader. Now Julian's dead, suspiciously quickly, if you really think about it. And Key tells Theo that Julie insisted that she only trust him if things start getting weird, and it's out in this little cowshed or whatever, and she reveals that she is pregnant. She's sort of browbeaten into almost having the baby here instead of, because Theo's like, go to a fucking doctor.
I love that this scene is kind of like, you're thrown into the deep end. You're very much in with Clive Owen at this point, where like he's kind of going like, go to a doctor. This is the logical thing to do. Like,
you need help.
The kind of like naive audience surrogate where like we as ordinary people are kind of going to be watching the scene and going like, this is huge. Like, this is going to change the world, and people are going to be good about this, and like this first childbirth is going to be huge. And then in the background, like all these people are just going like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, there's no way they're going to let a black woman be, or a black foreigner.
Yeah, they say how they're just going to hand the baby to a posh black woman and stuff, and all of this sort of stuff, and how there's no way they would recognise a refugee having the first baby in 18 years, given how incredibly anti-immigrant Britain's been. And like this entire thing of like the reason British government still works is because they've just 100% cracked down on immigration. It's all just so dark. And Luke is voted the new leader of the Fishers, which is something, I mean, you could have guessed it if they didn't do this, but like you hear them like toasting him or like voting him in through a window as you walk, as Theo's walking past, as the camera is walking past the window. Just all this great like ancillary background stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I love how diverse this group of Fishers is, because obviously like the co-owner of the farm is Tomas, and he's from Poland, and they do a little talk about like him being there being from Poland, and
cod, an English fish.
An English fish. And there's obviously like people of kind of like Indian descent or Pakistani descent in the group as well.
Yeah, I think he's called Ian, one of the characters there, who is one of the many who are like, you're a fucking idiot. Oh, she should have the baby here. He's the one that was sitting behind Theo on the train, and yeah, he seems to be of Middle Eastern descent, but he seems quite posh himself, so I think there might be a classism thing going on here as well. And Chiwetel Ejiofor obviously has his quite well-spoken accent in most things, but
yeah, but it is like they are so much more diverse. Like no matter when you see anyone else, it seems like they're always white British people who are doing this other stuff, which again feels so suppressive. Like I don't even think in the scene where they're going through Whitehall you see any people of colour.
I don't know.
In that scene,
a fun game to play while you're watching this depressing movie. Throughout this, Theo is under constant, like, gentle surveillance. Like, Tomasz has to, like, follow him around as he's going outside, and then, like, he won't leave him alone until Miriam takes him, and all of this stuff. And I think it's here. I think Key is the one that says, Julian told me you had a child called Dylan, and he called you Papa, and you taught him to swim when he was 2, and all this stuff. So I think that's when you get the actual full-on confirmation there. And Theo starts a tradition that follows through the rest of the film. Every time someone learns that Key is either pregnant or sees her baby, because spoilers, she has the baby in the movie, the first thing they say is Jesus Christ, or just Jesus, or just Christ. So, you know, we're going real heavy on this virgin birth type thing we're doing here. We then move on to sort of the middle portion of the movie once we've had this big revelation. So Theo is awoken in the night because there's a commotion. Patrick, who's Charlie Hunnam's character, who is a Geordie with dreadlocks, so just oof.
I love the little touch of both Patrick and Miriam have both got dreadlocks.
Yeah,
and it's another one of those.
Miriam's got this sort of, to us, unrecognisable kind of spiritual, religious bent to her. Like, she is performing, like, the death ritual she does for Julian. It's like, what is this? And I think...
it's how the movie ends as well, like, in the credits. Like, the words she say kind of, like, come up at the end credits. But it is that, like, is this another sect of religion in the UK? Is this one of those things where, like, they're appropriating cultures of... I mean, like, there is this very fine line that they take in terms of, like, they are defending immigrants, but are they also appropriating... Are they arguing they're cultures? Doing it out
of solidarity? Like, is it... But I also think it's just that general cliche of, like, you know, the hippie type character leaning in that
Yeah,
direction.
the enlightened white person.
Yeah. So he rocks up on a bike in the middle of the night, and he has his cousin or his brother, I think it's his brother, with him, who is very injured, and they're very like, why did you bring him here, you fucking idiot? And they sort of bring him inside, and it's very like, hide the bike. And something I definitely didn't notice on my first watch, heavy implication, because of how much Patrick hates Theo personally. They were the two on the bike that shot Julian, and it was Theo opening the door into, and you see the rider on the back goes flying off, so we infer that was Patrick's brother or cousin or whatever he is. Yeah, and Theo's obviously not meant to have seen any of this, because we also learn, they say here, that they were responsible for Julian's death, all intended to, it's like a mutiny, because Luke and Julian clearly had different ideas.
Yeah, they don't want Key to go to the Human Project. They want her to stay in the UK and become a symbol.
Yeah, they want to use the baby as a political platform, which is something she explicitly says she doesn't want to do, and they're like, oh, we'll do whatever you want, but they're very clearly like limiting her choices in such a way where she has to go along with what they're saying.
It feels like, I understand what Key's point of view is, but it also feels very much like naive of her to think that her child would not be able to become a political figure.
And like, you know, the untold story of what happens at the end of this film, it's like, well, I think some stuff would go down differently than you're all hoping here, but yeah, we get this in another intense scene with Theo like creeping around the house in the middle of the night and hearing that they have plans to kill him and what they're going to do with the baby and all of this, and you even see like Luke pulling the gun on Patrick and like threatening him and stuff like that. So he goes and gets Key and Miriam, and he flees this farm. I say the middle of the night, like by the time they actually get away, the sun is fully up, and it's a weird thing of like, was this a legit continuous shot? Because it's like we go from like it's pitch black to like the sun is starting to come up to the sun is up. I assume this is just they did film it all in a row and they just chose takes that were like enough apart that the entire time of day changed. But
yeah, this is another one that's like really nice technical
like
shows.
Seeing him move like between the cars and stuff, pulling out the stuff from...
He pulls the brake line, doesn't he, on one of the cars, because one of the cars is able to start and then crashes into the trees.
Yes, that is what happens. Yes, very good. Yeah, it's just so intense, and like it feels like so much of this feels like modern video games that go big on the cutscenes and like the moving dynamic cameras and stuff, and you know, Metal Gear Solid and The Last of Us and all this sort of stuff. There's so many shots in those kind of games that I can't help but think must have taken some inspiration from this, because it's so specific in the visual coding of it all.
I love the little touch of like earlier on when they first arrive, like Luke says like, don't block my car in, it won't start, it needs to jump. To leave, and then they obviously get into the car at the front and it's the one that can't start, so the tension of this scene is he's purposely destroyed all these other cars, but like he can't start the car that he's stolen.
He should have taken one of theirs, but it's blocked in, isn't it? And there's also the little touch of animals really like Theo. Tomasz says how, they like you, they don't like anyone, and then while he's making his in some ways almost comically slow escape but still fast enough to get away, and like you see Charlie Hunnam like sprinting down the hill as like he's gone Terminator mode, and it's like they won't let them open fire. Exactly, they won't let them open fire in the car because Key's in there, and he's asking if he can shoot, and Key opens the door. And then he shoves
over a hay bale.
Yeah, exactly. Him and doors, man, he won't learn. But yeah, once they get to the bottom of the hill of just a push start, the dogs come charging down. It's like, oh, you're fucked. But the dogs just sort of get there and then just bark a lot because they don't really want to hurt Theo, and it's like, yeah, good. And yeah, they barely get away, and we've had another of these intense little scenes.
I love the amount of animal stuff in this movie. Like,
there's a dog in like every single scene. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like, but I love that there's the cats in the farmhouse when like they're doing the vote, and there's just this little kitten that's crawling up Theo's leg as he's like sat there,
just climbing that leg. Yeah, so he of course takes them to Jasper, who formulates this plan to smuggle them into Bexhill refugee camp, and they'll like meet the boat from there somehow. But the fishers come for them, and so he sends them on their way, despite it being very clear he's not going to survive this. So there's a beat throughout the movie that like you'd be forgiven for not paying attention to, with this quietus thing, which
like it's been advertised on TV, and I think they mentioned earlier it's like they give you this suicide kit and whatnot.
Yeah, and you see it on a bus, and yeah, he's just talking about it in passing. And when he walks in, Jasper, there's this moment, it's like, is he dead? And like the quietus is on the floor next to his food or whatever, and it's like, oh fuck. And then he turns out he's just asleep, and he's like, oh, I use it on the rat. chats, and it works exactly like they say. Like they go very peacefully, and it's just this. It will be very important in a minute, but yeah, it's this thing that was just in the background throughout the movie. And at first, this is all nice stuff with them all hanging out, and we get
it's a nice respite because we've had like 2 quite intense scenes where they've had to run away from stuff.
Yes,
and now they get to just kind of relax a little bit, and you get a little bit of a download on Dylan and his relationship to, like they mentioned, like, oh, Theo and Julian loved bringing Jack Dylan to like come see Jasper and stuff like that, and he loved it in this little house that they had,
and how they met at like a political rally, and talking about faith versus chance, and how like a life of believing the things they did led them together, and then the random chance of having Dylan, and then the unfortunate chance of a flu epidemic that they lost their child. Just seeing Theo go from smiling as he hears these old stories to like just that face as they get to the stuff about Dylan, because he's around the corner and everything. It's just so sad.
Clive Owen doesn't say a lot in this movie.
No, not really.
He says enough, but like there's a lot of scenes where it's just him reacting to stuff, and this is one of those like key ones where the camera's offset to like all of them having fun, and you get the callback to Jasper's giving Miriam the strawberry cough, and she gets it, but he's kind of like framed, and he's still struggling to find shoes after leaving them in the
another beat that like is sort of understated is he's like wearing flip-flops for quite a long time from here, and then like someone hands him a pair of shoes later on, and you'd be forgiven for thinking like, what? And it's like, oh right, because he's been a dumbass running around in flip-flops for so long. And then when they come for them and he sends them on their way, and he's like, come on mate, and you come in, he's like, no, I'm staying behind. And it's like, you know what's going to happen here, and having to sit there and watch him, like he puts on Ruby Tuesday, and it's like it's a cover, and like he's sitting there preparing the quietus box, and he tells his wife he loves her, and it's just like, oh god, because it's not that the fishes would kill her, it's worse, it's that like she would just be left there unable to do anything, and just
they wouldn't kill her, they probably will kill him.
Yeah, exactly. And just like the dignity of this death versus just being left there to waste away in that. And like I think he kills the dog too, and
the line is very ambiguous because they say there's a dead woman and dog inside. And
is that dead woman and dead dog, or dead woman and dog? And it's like, because I mean, the dog could potentially go rummage around in the bushes and stuff, I don't know, but it's played very well by Michael Caine. Shockingly, Michael Caine's a good actor.
Yeah, and then he gets to come out and do this, like, all throughout the movie he's been in this thing where, like, he keeps on asking people to pull his finger. It's this, like, very childish thing that really suits the personality of the character that he has in this movie.
Apparently Michael Caine had a really fun time wearing that costume, I think. But yeah, his dying moments are doing pull my finger and getting shot repeatedly by Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah, it's like it's that thing where like they shoot him in each limb, and again, this movie's so brutal. It's all done from the distance. It's all done from Theo's point of view, as like you're watching it from afar, but you can still tell that like each limb kind of goes dead. And
like a really realistic sounding gunshot as well, and just seeing Theo's reaction to that as well. It's just it's fucked.
I can't remember what he says to Miriam as they go back to the car.
Says, don't fucking touch me. What's the reason for that? Because she's very everything happens for a reason, and then Key asks and goes like, "Is Jasper okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, he's fine." Yeah, it's like everything's fine. Shut up. Off they go though to rendezvous with Jasper's contact. It's like an abandoned school, I think, or something like that. And there's like
which is where we get like, because obviously Miriam's been this kind of like weird force where like she's aligned with the fishes, but she's coming with Key because
her loyalty is more to Key than the fishes, it feels, or
she
more than they do has Key's best interests at heart, even if they are all fishes or whatever.
Yeah, but she does this like little speech about being a midwife back before the
haunting stuff.
Yeah, like she was a midwife, and she said like she noticed that there weren't any bookings for like the next 6 or 7 months into the future, and she
called around and was seeing similar things, and like miscarriages were happening earlier and earlier, and it is this really nice moment between these. They had just been like at odds with him, like, you know, don't fucking touch me and all this stuff, and it's not that they were like enemies up until now, but that is quite a tense bit. And then he says the very nice thing about like, and now you'll be here for the beginning, and she thanks him for it, and it's nice to see them have this little moment. And Pam Ferris throughout is really good, but like she crushes it in that scene there, and it's,
I mean, the thing is like this movie doesn't have, because so much of it has to focus on Clive Owen, like everyone around them doesn't have like a lot to do to kind of like do it, but like in their like 1 or 2 scenes where they get to show off, they are really good.
And they talk about how like the world sounds strange without children laughing in it, and that will of course pay off at the end. But they they rendezvous with Sid, who is very unhinged. He talks about himself in the third person, which should have been the immediate red flag. And yeah, they're put on a bus towards Bexhill, and during the journey, Key goes into labour, and Miriam is taken away by she's trying to cover for her, and they take her away, and the very strong implication is that Miriam is executed there and then, but it's super fucked. But they do eventually make it to their shelter within the camp, and Theo is forced to help deliver the baby. I've gone over a lot there, but
it's a very creepy performance from Peter Mullen.
It really is. Like, even before you know what's up, I feel this is a trope. The guy that, like, we all know he's a bit wrong, and the character sort of is initially distrustful of them, but like you don't get the extent of it for a minute, and it's like you're waiting for them to turn on him or whatever. But
because the last thing Jasper says is like, Sid's okay, just remember to call him like a fucking fascist when
fascist
you see
pig. Yeah.
Fascist pig. Theo does it, and then like his whole demeanor changes, and he's just like, say that to me again.
Yeah, and it's intense, and like he pulls the baton out and everything, and it's some stuff for sure.
He does some like very fun like flips. Sid does on the way there, because like at points he seems nice and jovial. Like, he's like, I like dealing with Jasper Sid likes dealing with Jasper because
he's like, I can get it cheaper, but like I like it from him because
he's funny, or like he's nice
because Sid likes him.
Because Sid likes him, and then he immediately turns into like, what's up with her? Because Key's in labour, and he's like, you can't throw up, you can't get vomit out of these things.
Show me your Fuji face. Show me your sad Fuji face. And we learn on the bus that no one actually talks directly to the Human Project, which led me, I remember, to thinking, it's all going to be a fucking like ruse or whatever, and it'll all be a trap, and they don't even exist or whatever. But no, it's just a little bit where, and Theo's very like, sorry, say that again, which isn't something you see a lot in films. Everything has to be like pointed dialogue, and Miriam getting fucking taken out to be potentially executed.
Yeah, we don't ever see it. It's not one of those things where like they pan across and you see a firing line. You just see.
Well, you kind of do, because like they're putting a bag on her head, and then they
put the bag on her head. They've got them all lined up. Some of them are being walked off in the background, and then some of them are like.
But
dead,
no one in the background has a bag on their head, and everyone who's dead does have a bag on their head. It's sort of like, I think the reason they even take her is because it's like heavy use of like religious language or anything like that. I feel makes.
I don't even think it's that. I just think it's like people who seem troublemakery. They just take them off the thing, which is just this profoundly fucked up thing where like there's no rhyme or reason. They are just executing these people with no just cause or anything like that. Most of them they're putting into this what is supposed to be a prison, but is actually just Bexhill on Sea with gates around it, which is
and just fuck you, live in this ghetto. Basically, is the implication that every now and then they bring ships to like deport them, or are they just left here to fucking rot, or what have we got going on here?
I mean, because there's a thriving infrastructure, because like Miriam gets taken and Theo and Key kind of like make it through the rest of this kind of like trial, whatever it is, and they get out the other side, and there's people with bikes and people saying like, come stay with us, pay us money to stay in our little hotel, we've got running water,
the luxuries, all the luxuries that Bexhill
like,
can't possibly deliver.
It is so much like they are just, there is a town here,
but it's just it's intense as well, like knowing that she's in labour every second of it as they're walking around, and like they keep almost getting separated, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, catch up with her. And they do relatively unscathed make it into this accommodation, and like the birth scene is another intense fake one shot, and there's weird stuff going on with like fake legs and a CGI baby and stuff, but just it is very impressive that the camera doesn't seem to cut away from when they get in there until the baby has been born.
But the tension of this scene is more about like the person who's showing them around, Marichka, is like, she just doesn't want to leave and she doesn't speak English. They can't just go like, fuck off. Like,
yeah, well, she's like, tell her to get the fuck out and everything. And I think it's one of the more intense birth scenes in cinema, to be honest. I mean, I know there are a lot of intense birth scenes in film and TV history, but this one really stands out, I think, because of that intensity that is created by that.
And we haven't talked a lot about Claire Hobashti so far.
No, she's very good.
She's very good. She doesn't like. It's a weird role, because so much of it is like reacting to the world around her.
But every time she says wicked or like swears unexpectedly, it's like
yeah, like there's obviously there's earlier on where like Theo kind of asks her and goes like, who's the father? And she goes like, oh, it's a virgin birth, and then starts giggling immediately after he kind of like freaks out a little bit.
Yeah, there is that implication of, like, is she a sex worker? Because, I mean, she's an illegal immigrant who's wanted, and if she is, she couldn't have a job, and I don't know, maybe that is what they're trying to say there, but
yeah,
she
like,
says how she doesn't get the wankers' names or whatever. Or...
Yeah, and there's plural, it's not just the one, but she's this, like, she plays it so well between being so full of kind of, like, hope and joy, and she's obviously so young. I think she was about 19 when she shot this. Yeah, she's 32 at the moment, so I think, like, she must have been very young. But yeah, I mean, she's like the one who I've not seen a lot of afterwards. I know she's in Dr. Foster, and I think she did an episode of Master of None, but, like, I've not seen her in anything that I've actually watched. Yeah. Apart from the one episode of Master of None, but she didn't stick out for whatever role she played in that.
So we have our child, and the next morning Sid comes back for them. We get that turn of, even before he sees the baby, we find out from him that he learned there's a bounty on their heads, and he's figured he'd come back. Like, that's why he's come back. And then he discovers the baby as well, and he gives us this info that, like, I totally missed on my first viewing. I was just sort of like, how are there guns in this place? Like, surely they just stormed the gates. It's like, no, the Fishers have bombed their way in and armed people, because they've been talking about this uprising throughout the movie, and this is it for them. Like, it's like an armed uprising from one of the camps, and they think they're going to get the baby and use it as a boon and everything. But yeah, Sid is creepy here and, like, has them at gunpoint, and they are forced to overpower him and flee, and Theo, I think, kills him with a fucking car battery, or at least knocks him out.
I'm pretty sure, because his jaw definitely, like, moves a good inch.
Yeah, and he just slumps, and yeah, they do make it out there to another safe house with the promise of a boat and everything, but it's rough stuff, man. It's this sort of everyone turning on each other, every man for themselves type dirty world that they've created.
Like, the scene with Sid chasing them is fantastically tense, because you know he's going to get up and come down the hallway at some point, but they can't get through the door because the door doesn't quite open.
Yeah, and then that brief moment where it's like, she's got my baby, and then she just pops back around. It's like, no, she's one of the good ones, you're okay.
And then they get to this, like, safe house, and they start being more liberal with who they show the baby to, and there's this wonderful moment where the baby's being, like, completely spoiled by these, like, two Eastern European women who have not seen a child in God knows how long.
Yeah, well, we're getting famously to... This stretch of the movie has a lot of that, and it's really powerful. When they're heading out towards the boat and everything, and I like that he has to draw a boat on the wall as well, because obviously she doesn't speak English, but on their way to the boat, the Fishers intercept them, and Luke takes Key, and Patrick is about to execute them, but Theo narrowly avoids it and navigates through a literal war zone, and eventually does manage to rescue Key. Just the intensity of this scene with Patrick sort of walking towards camera, singing his little Geordie shanty song, and, like, executing one of the guys and doing it in this haphazard. As I said, this is very video game villain from this sort of era.
Yeah, he doesn't even look at him. It's like side gun, not even the one who's, like, directly in front of him, does it from the distance. But there's also the great moment where, like, when Luke takes Key away, he turns around to Patrick and it's just like, don't do it to her around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like they have to protect... They're still going to keep lying to Key and just, like, pretend that he just took some, like, incidental fire or whatever. But yeah, he is safe while Key is there. But then Patrick being interrupted by, like, gunfire from the side, and Jesus, like, this whole scene is shot like a sort of slick war in the Middle East style thing with just stuff happening.
I mean, there's
even
that
road.
Yeah, there's even that earlier scene where, like, they're running through the streets and they run into the Islam. Oh no, the Islamic kind of, like, parade.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Where they're all going Allah Akbar, which feels very pointed, even back then.
That's what I mean by at least there are some white people scattered in here, and that, like, Key is black. It's like, this could have been real rough stuff handled by different people, I think. I don't even know how to talk about it. Just him making his way up to Key through all of these, like, just every road there's suddenly an explosion or gunfire, or, like, Patrick sees him at the end of the road and, like, he has to take cover, and then a tank fucking rocks up. And I really like Clive Owen's body language in the scene where Patrick is in a room next to him, and he, like, sees him go in, and he, like, his hands move in a way that's like, should I try and grab him, or should I, like, hang back? And he doesn't know what to do, and eventually sort of fate sort of takes it out of his hands. But yeah, it's all just so delightfully tense, and, like, this scene made the studio concerned because it took them 14 days to prepare it in the first place, and every reset for a take took 5 hours, and in the middle of it there's a blood splatter on the camera, and Cuarón tried to call cut, and they had to overrule him and be like, no, keep going, because there was so much noise you couldn't really hear that anyway. But because it's so difficult to do, and that blood splatter scene is the one that makes it in, and that's part of how you can tell it isn't really a one shot, is the blood suddenly disappears.
Yeah, it's like it starts to disappear, and you can tell they're trying to like bleed it away, so you don't like it doesn't just disappear immediately.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one of the things that makes it so much more intense. Like, it's that moment of like just the slight fourth wall break that the movie does. It feels so much more intimate when that happens, and this scene is so good.
Yeah, it's a 6-minute sort of one-er, and just so intense, just so like, there are action movies that set out to be action movies that cannot hope to match this, and this isn't an action movie by, I would think, any definition of what genre.
Yeah, like what Clive Owen fights one person in this movie, really.
Never touches a gun. There's no like big standoffs or fist fights or anything. It's just bad shit is going down, and there is an intensity to just trying to navigate it versus like most movies going all in on just guns everywhere, fist fights everywhere. Like, just everyone just look at this and direct your action scenes like this.
And I love that, like, kind of when he gets up to the top there, like everyone on the top floor is kind of staring into the room where Luke and Key are.
Yeah,
because they can hear the baby crying, and it's like, what the fuck is this?
Chiwetel Ejiofor in this scene is so good. Like, him being like, I just started crying while I was carrying the baby. I forgot how beautiful they are. And then he just starts firing out of the side of the building.
Yeah, what I love about this is the two quote-unquote villains of this piece. Like, 'cause Luke and Patrick are kind of the closest things this movie has to a villain, even though you understand what their point of view is, even if you don't agree with it. Like, they are just going like, we need to do something drastic to turn the tide of this.
Radical action is required.
But I love that, like, you don't see either of them die, really. Or, like, Patrick you get to see, but it's very much like, in the distance, he gets kind of, like, pegged twice and then collapses and stuff like that. And even then with Luke, where Theo manages to get Key out of the room.
And he does open fire on him, but, like, you assume he missed for a second.
Yeah, but then he, like, walks down the hallway, and then all of a sudden you just see the room go up in the same way that the bomb went off.
Exactly.
Earlier on in the movie.
Oh, God, this whole moment. I think it could have been so
cheesy.
Yes, and I think it is handled so powerfully, wherein every single person that sets eyes on the baby just can't believe it. And, like, the worship that you get from the refugees, and then, like, even the fishes seeing it and being like, oh. And, like, they touch it as they go by, and then the soldiers, like the guards, who have been just treating the refugees like they're subhuman scum and everything, even they are like, fucking stop firing, and, like, they get escorted out. It's like, oh, we got two coming out, and just walking past this, like, long line of soldiers, and every one of them, like, in awe. And then just the fighting breaks out again in the background. It's just so powerful, so intense.
It could have been overplayed by any actor in that scene. Like, no one freaks out. Everyone just kind of, like, it's all understated, like a couple utterances of Jesus Christ, people reaching their hands up to touch the baby. Like, the closest you get to, like, an actual outburst is that cease firing, which fits in so seamlessly to show how serious this is, where the entire army's going to go like, stop this, there is a child here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no one's seen a baby in 20... Some people have never seen a baby, probably, in this world.
And this is like, there are, like, multicultural soldiers in this scene, if I recall.
I believe so, yeah.
Again, it toes that line very well.
And, like, seeing that shot of the two characters with the baby and, like, the soldiers all behind them, like, that is one of the big, like, images that are used from the movie. And I haven't actually made the poster at the time of recording. It may be the one I use, but they do make it to the boat, and they row out to this buoy as instructed. Boy. And Theo succumbs to a gunshot wound we didn't actually even know he had. But, I mean, if you actually watch it, you can see he gets hit. It's just they don't do the typical reaction shot, so it's like, who knows? And Key says she will name her daughter Dylan for his dead son, and then the movie closes with the promised boat, the Tomorrow, arriving, and the credits roll. Just them rowing out into this mist. And also Theo, like, wanting... Is it Marika, the character?
Marichka.
Theo wanting Marichka to come with them. Like, he's just this nice guy. Like, so many films like this, the protagonist would be very, like, fuck everyone else, only what's necessary. And he just constantly wants everyone nice to come with him. And it's just... He's just a good dude, isn't he?
And also, do you think it is, like, I'm gonna die, I need someone else to, like...
Wow, yeah.
be in this boat with her.
And also knowing that they're all going to die. Like, because we heard from Sid that, like, they're going to bomb the place. And then when they row out into the mist, and it's almost another world. Like, this sort of weird, like, they're just out in the middle of nowhere. And you hear, and I don't know if you see them, but you hear the planes going overhead to bomb the place and kill everyone there, presumably. And yeah, just this lovely little scene where, like, the last things he does are give parenting advice and be told that she's naming the child after his son and everything.
Yeah, because he does the thing, like, he's probably got wind, you need to hold him the thing. I also got the wonderful moment where Luke's got the baby, and, like, after he said, like, I started crying, I can't remember, he says, like, it's such a beautiful baby boy or something like that.
Oh, he's like, we need him, and it's like,
we need him.
It's a girl.
Like, and, like, in that he feels so crestfallen, and, like, I don't even know what the kind of implication there is, like, whether or not there is gender politics going on inside his head, but is this beautiful moment where, like...
Well, I think it well, he says, I had a sister, and I think that just makes it more real for him, almost. But, I mean, he does continue to try and stop them, it's just it stuns him for a second or whatever.
Yeah. Which is beautifully played by Chiwetel, who is... Yeah. He's just coming off Serenity at this point.
Oh, my God. One of the best villain performances in sci-fi history.
The year before this, he had both Serenity and Kinky Boots. And he was also in Inside Man.
Which he's not awful in. I wish he had a little bit more here, but, like, the focus has to be so much on Clive Owen that, like, he can't. He gets what he's got, and he's good in it, because he's good in everything, let's be real. It's a great performance. And we have this ambiguous ending where, like, you know, the ship is there, that's real. And they very easily could have just ended it with them sitting on that boat and you not knowing what happened. But you don't know what's going to happen here. Like, you don't know if the Human Project are real. You know the boat is real, but you don't know...
if it's actually a fishing boat. You see it's called the Tomorrow, but you don't know if it is just a fishing vessel and this is all hearsay.
Yeah, and you don't know, like, say they're real, maybe it's a situation where it's like, right, we're going to cut this baby to pieces and, like, figure out, like, why you were able to, and you as well, like, you know, figure out what happened, or maybe it is a happy world where, like, they fixed it all, because, I mean, the credits are just full of laughing and shouting and screaming children, which harkens back to what Miriam was saying about the world feeling funny and everything. But yeah, that ambiguous ending, because it's, you know, it's about the journey, not the destination, and all that sort of stuff, and it's what Kieran set out to do. He didn't want to do exposition, and he didn't want a neatly packaged ending. He just wanted to tell, it's Theo's story, like, of this slice of the end of Theo's life and everything. So it's a great ending, and some of these sort of endings I think sort of piss me off when they can't be bothered to come up with an ending, and then some of them I think really, really work, and this falls into that latter camp. Yeah,
this is one of those kind of, like, I don't want to say it's like an underrated masterpiece, but it's definitely, this feels like the kind of thing that a lot more people probably should have seen at the time. Like, I feel like there's a lot here to appeal to a lot of people, but for whatever reason, advertising, whatever, like, it just didn't get seen by that many people.
And it's hard to, like, explain it without just giving away what happens, and, like, you sort of have to show people the one shots, but then it's like showing them out of context, and yeah, it's, everyone watch it. It's really, really good.
If you aren't watching along with us,
yeah, that'd be weird if you just listened to this and heard us talk about movies you've never seen. Well, maybe you do. That's why we tell you at the end of each episode what the next one is. Give you that week to watch. At the very end of the credits, it says "Shanty, Shanty, Shanty" at the end, which I believe means peace. And Jasper said it to them when they were all in his house earlier, and it is used in a T.S. Eliot poem about infertility. So there you go. There's a little reference for people who are well read. I'm not. I can just read Wikipedia. So I don't know what else there is to say. It's just a style.
Not much. Great movie. It plays so much differently now in 2019 than it did in 2016, or before 2016. Yeah. Again, I can't remember the last time we saw it, but I definitely haven't watched it since then.
Yeah.
I'm watching it with my partner, and, like, just kind of like her coming out of it. It's kind of like, that was really great.
Yeah. It's a stylistic masterpiece, and I don't know why Clive Owen isn't a bigger star. It's not. He's not in anything, but I feel this is like, why isn't everyone just offering him work based on this alone? So good. I look forward to the next Kieran project. I wish, as you said, that they were closer together, but yeah.
I know, because there's 7 years between this and Gravity, and then there's another 6 years or 5 years between Gravity and Roma.
Yeah, and I think he did
Roma should have won Best Picture.
Yes. I think he did some TV and some short stuff and everything.
Yeah, he did an episode of the pilot for Believe, but yeah, not enough, really.
No. Well, as I said, we tell you what we're doing next week so you can watch along with us. Go to intotherealworld.com, Mike and Matt on SoundCloud. Next week we are doing...
Our first Best Picture winner.
Yeah, wow. We're really good at picking the movies. The Departed. Actually, that makes me like it less if it won Best Picture. We're doing The Departed, which was mentioned at the beginning of this episode, and we will sort of be back to some Cuarón as producer down the line, so maybe you can figure that one out. Until then, thank you everyone. It's insufferably hot, so I must go. But Ben, before you go, you do have a final task for us. Can you confirm? Will there be movies?
Do I do a Boston accent?
Go on.
There will be movies. There will be movies.
You're a coward. Bye, everyone.